This episode is made possible by NetSuite by Oracle and Brex, the AI-powered spend platform.
Hello, it's Peter Benavides, CFO of Olo, and you are listening to the CFO Thought Leader Podcast.
This is episode 1015.
And what attracted me to the culture and to how the founding team thinks about the business and thinks about the strategy is how hyper-focused we are. That's really a differentiator. We're hyper-focused on doing that one thing and doing it really, really well. We have a large component that's open source, and that allows us to be in the hands of hundreds of thousands and millions of developers. That's a huge difference that MinIO is really well known for. We have recently launched our enterprise suite of products, or enterprise suite product, that signifies the direction and communicates the direction where the company is going. And that has a whole bunch of enterprise features and that address enterprise needs like observability, data cataloging, encryption, all of those things that are really needed for using their own data within those large corporate settings.
Hi, it's Jack. On today's episode, we speak with Mark Khavkin, CFO of MinIO. Starting in 2008 as an investment professional with a private equity firm in Europe, Mark Khavkin tells us he gained unique experience in boardroom strategies. This foundation allowed him to read boardroom dynamics from the earliest days of his career and prepared him to anticipate a variety of operational perspectives, setting the stage for the path forward. You'll hear that story and much more on today's episode. We'll begin after this. CFOs and controllers, does expense management feel like a necessary evil? It's time to switch to Brex. Brex automates and accelerates spend management with easy-to-use corporate cards, travel, expense management, and bill pay, all on one AI-powered platform. Brex makes it easy to boost efficiency and compliance enterprise-wide and free up your managers, employees, and accounting team for higher impact work. Top companies from startups to enterprises are using Brex to automate manual work and transform their finance operations. We're talking DoorDash, Robinhood, Airtable, and countless other industry leaders. Ready to join them? Switch to AI-powered spend management at Brex.com. Hello, we're speaking to Mark Khavkin, CFO of MinIO. Mark, welcome.
Thanks very much, Jack. It's great to be here.
So, Mark, we're going to begin where we always do, which is to ask you to take us back and try to identify those experiences you believe help prepare you to step into a finance leadership role. What comes to mind for you?
Yeah, thank you, Jack. I'm happy to share. Starting out my career, I always thought I was going to be an investment professional. And so my first role out of business school in 2008, of all years, was working for a private equity company in Europe. And being on boards, learning from fellow investors, being involved in various board strategy discussions, some conflicts with other investors, a lot of exploring different entrepreneurs and their ideas and their companies taught me a lot about how investors think about opportunities and how investors think about actually managing and leading from the position of being a board member, which is obviously very different from leading a company as an operator. But the experience and the ability to read the room in that board setting and the ability to anticipate what the operator, your NVC in your portfolio company, or a prospect, and how they are presenting their story, how they're forming their narrative, and what resonates and what doesn't prepared me really, really well for being an operator and being on the other side of the table, if you will. I'd imagine my second experience that prepared me for finance leadership was doing corporate development, being on a corporate development team within a large company. I was at eBay in Silicon Valley for about 3 years doing corp dev work. And what stood out, or what actually prepared me for the finance leadership experience, was not the tactical minutiae of doing transactions, but it was aligning and trying to understand how business unit leaders and how technology leaders look at acquisition opportunities, how they think about the business in the context of what they are doing, what they need to do as part of what they've signed up for as part of strategic planning or annual planning, and then how can they close the gaps via acquisitions. So what I learned in that particular experience, and that was my first time being exposed to this line of work, is actually how operators who are not finance people, who are not executives, but how people who actually manage day to day large teams, how they manage up and how they manage sideways and how they manage throughout the organization, how they think about their business. I happened to learn it in the context of an M&A opportunity, but that really, really helped me be an operator later on.
Now you're becoming to look more like a corporate finance executive because you've been in that environment for a number of years. And I'm curious about your next move, which is more of a traditional finance role than, say, corporate development, or no? Would you describe it differently?
No, the following move was in many ways thanks to a mentor of mine whom I actually met at eBay, who was one of the divisional CFOs. He stepped out of eBay and took a CFO job at a company back then called Odesk. And as part of my learning from him and understanding what he did as a CFO subsequently to leaving eBay and how he managed to influence the company from the position of finance C-suite, I really got the bug. And he invited me to join Odesk after my journey with eBay ended. And that was an amazing experience. I joined at the time the company became known as Upwork. I joined Upwork to lead the FP&A function, specifically to learn from the CFO how to influence and how to impact culture, how to impact change as a finance executive within an operating company.
And again, Upwork, I think, was on its way to an IPO. And as you described your skill set from the very start, you began learning how to tell the story and finding the numbers. How am I doing? Am I close to?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What I was able to do, I was able to tie the investor narrative, plain spoken in the investor language, with the narrative from within the company that each individual business leader, in a functional leader, was driving their teams toward. So I was able to tie our marketing strategy to our investor narrative. I was able to tie our product strategy to the investor narrative. And I was able to demonstrate a full story from the beginning, from how we think about our market opportunity, to how we tie that to a product, to how we tie that to our financing needs and 3 to 5 year strategy. That helped me a lot. And I knew how to do it. What I was doing for the first time at Upwork is the actual nuts and bolts of FP&A. But you're exactly right. My experience in a private equity firm, being on the investor side, and prior to that, I also had, I did not mention, at a few stints at in public markets, equity management. All of that really, really helped me to tie together these various narratives and present one compelling story.
The accounting side of the house, you collaborate with clearly, but it's you're coming up a different lane. You came up corporate development. You went into investor relations as well.
Yeah, the accounting function and the accounting colleagues were absolutely necessary for me to be able to do my job. And I understood it very early on. I was mentored to that effect. That was
Yeah.
consistent with all the advice I have gotten. The best way to describe it, I think, one of my mentors told me that for someone with my skill set, a good controller is worth their weight in gold. And I should learn from them and aspire to hire for my team people who don't mind teaching me. And that the lens I've applied to all the controllers I've hired in my tenure. But absolutely, I never hide it. It's very clear from my resume. That's not my strength. And
Yeah.
I need a, a superstar controller to complement me to make the finance team actually work on behalf of the company and the shareholders.
Well, it sounds like it's a very dynamic environment that you were there. Did it go public while you were there, or had you moved on?
I left, I believe, 12 to 18 months before Upwork went public, and I joined Pantheon, where I've subsequently stayed for 6.5 years almost. And at the time, Pantheon was a much earlier stage company.
What was the opportunity that you saw there? And I think you're beginning to see the CFO path in front of you, meaning that you're looking for opportunities where you could advance into the senior ranks and possibly the CFO office. Is that what this next job might have
Yeah, the
been?
next job, the opportunity was to allow myself to graduate from being a functional leader to being a company leader.
Yeah.
And that's what I pursued. And I met with executives and founders of Pantheon, and they've presented a compelling case, obviously, for the product and for their addressable market and for how they thought about company growth, which were all phenomenal. But personally, from personal professional development viewpoint, I was striving to become a overall company leader who happened to be good with numbers and finance. I was eager to use what I learned purely as a tool for a greater impact.
And just to help the listeners with the time frame, you join Pantheon, and within 2 years, you're sitting in the CFO office. So there was a lot of advancement, and perhaps you join as a VP of finance. You would reside in the CFO office for 4.5 years, and that tour of duty was the one just prior to you joining MinIO. Can you tell us about that? Was there a CFO? Oh, I should ask. Was there a CFO prior to you?
There was not. No, I joined, as you correctly mentioned, I joined as a VP finance in 2017, and it took me a couple of years to earn the CFO promotion. There were a couple of inflection points in that career journey in those 2 years. One of them was related to a major pricing overhaul that I drove. And I think we're going to talk about this later in the podcast.
Yep.
Another one was a fundraising event that happened, our Series D funding round. But that funding round would not have been possible without the pricing change and the change that the company managed to go through with that new pricing. So those two things combined, earned me the right to be considered for the CFO role, and the founders, the CEO, and the board were fair enough to recognize that.
At this place in time, one of the interesting things that you just touched upon with us is there are no guarantees really. This VP of finance role was almost like an interim CFO role, which can be a somewhat stressful. They have in the back of their mind he could enter the C-suite. He might be. No guarantees. Am I right about that?
Yeah, no, totally, and this tests. It's not pass or fail at any given point in time. They're continuous because at every inflection point in the company journey, every C level and including the CEO and every executive who works for them is evaluated across the framework of they got us here, will they take us there? And that happens at I would be hard pressed to give you a number a revenue number at which point that happens, because it's different for every company, but it does. And the board would not be doing their job on behalf of the shareholders if they weren't assessing this at every inflection point of their choosing. So absolutely, that's how the game is played.
Well, Mark, we might have a few more career-related questions for you a little later in the podcast, but right now, let's find out about MinIO. What type of company is this, and what are its offerings today?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Very excited to talk about my new home, MinIO. I joined about 3 months ago now. MinIO is a software company that provides data infrastructure for exceptionally large AI workflows. And specifically, it's software-defined object storage, which is AI ready, which can work at exascale volumes. It's cloud native, compatible with major cloud technologies, and it's highly performant. So what allows our customers to do is to run those AI workflows on exascale volumes of proprietary data and do it in a highly performant manner, which is also price conscious. And
can you give us perhaps sort of an abbreviated history of the company's capital structure?
Yeah, well, the last funding round was, I believe, in early 2022, when we raised money with a valuation of over $1 billion, raised over $100 million. That was the major turning point in the company history, and obviously validation of the addressable market and of the product and business strategy the company is pursuing. Yeah, MinIO was able to attract phenomenal investors, including strategics and strategic investors and financial investors. And those investors are highly engaged to this day and are being very helpful to us. But yeah, the company was founded obviously a few years prior to that. And looking ahead at this phenomenal inflection point in its industry where we've captured a leadership position.
Yeah, and I'll just mention it's publicly known, I think, but Dell Capital, Intel Capital, SoftBank are included among the investors.
That's right.
Are the customers, when you describe excess volumes of data, companies that really have a data burden, are these are large enterprise customers that you have, or does it is the pie a little more?
These are very large enterprise customers.
Yeah.
But where the market is headed is more and more companies have to operate with this previously unthinkable data volumes to be competitive. So what was, a decade ago a purview of governments is now purview of large corporations and will be purview of SMEs at some point, not in too distant future, because people are only now realizing what kind of treasure trove these companies are sitting on. No one discards any data anymore, and people are realizing that it's that proprietary data that will determine the winners and losers in the AI age.
When you think of the top of mind metrics, like many companies that are seeking to get big quickly, I would think cash is a concern, or what are the top of mind metrics that you're paying close attention to?
Yeah, I'm trying to steer the company towards efficient growth. And what we need is just growth in absolute terms and annual recurring revenue. Net dollar retention is very important. Are we able to expand within our customer base, cross-sell across different brands, organizations, use cases, again, because we're talking about this large global enterprises.
Yeah.
And of course, trying to do it in an efficient level, watching sales and marketing efficiency, watching trends within our marketing team, sales team, and investments and product innovation and so forth. But predominantly at this point in the company journey, we want to make sure that as many teams and developers are using our product as possible.
You only arrived early this year, I believe, February of this year.
Right.
Can you tell us, as you step in, is there a particular number or metric that you realized you needed to see it more frequently, or you realize there's part of the organization that needs to be paying closer attention to this number, or just a different way of looking at things that you believe is going to help the company going forward?
There's no magic to it. You look at the pipeline
Mm-hmm.
and trends within the pipeline, how different opportunities are being worked, dispositioned, moved through the stages of the sales process. You look at performance of different sales teams or different members of the sales teams within those sales teams. And of course, you try to look at marketing that sits above the pipeline generation. But as I step in and reflecting on my first 90 days, I think it's much more important to get in front of as many customers and partners as possible and understand and empathize with who exactly the humans that are buying the product, what's in it for them, what are different buckets of roles they have, different customer profiles, how can you segment them? And that's what I've been trying to do as much as possible over the last 30, 60, 90 days before trying to figure out the one magic number to look at.
Yep.
Because numbers at the end of the day are only there to prove or disprove your hypothesis. And going back to what we talked about before, numbers are there to support the investor narrative, not the other way around.
How does AI intersect this world? Is it an important component of the offering?
It's the major use case for which our customers buy object storage that is high performant, for which our customers buy MinIO. And that is the revolution that this platform shift is what's driving MinIO adoption across companies that need exascale data volumes and that need those data volumes to be highly performant at a point of a workflow.
Yeah. So the AI strategies that are being deployed all across industries are demanding, greater data solutions and infrastructure. And that's
AI strategies are only as good as the data that underpins them.
Yeah.
And that's where we come in.
How competitive is this market? Are there clearly other solutions that either match your offering or overlap it? You guys do things a little differently or have an edge here where they might be more advanced? I don't know, in certain areas. Can you give us a sense or a flavor of what the competitive marketplace is?
Well, so I think what puts us apart is we're hyper focused on doing that one thing and doing it really, really well. We have a large component that's open source, and that allows us to be in the hands of hundreds of thousands and millions of developers. That's a huge difference that MinIO is really well known for. We have recently launched our enterprise suite of products, or enterprise suite product that signifies the direction and communicates the direction where the company is going, and that has a whole bunch of enterprise features and that address enterprise needs like observability, data cataloging, encryption, all of those things that are really needed for using their own data within those large corporate setting. And again, I think what attracted me to the culture and to how the founding team thinks about the business and thinks about the strategy is how hyper focused we are. That's really a differentiator in my experience.
Now, I want to touch on AI some more with you, just from your own finance function point of view. Is there a place for generative AI and helping the finance function deliver greater value or help with decision making more assertively?
Yeah, so I think there are both strategic components of my job that could use AI and generative AI in particular. And then there are also tactical components within my job and within the organization that could really be helped. On the strategic side, there is a place for AI to feed me hypotheses from the outside setting. Uh, for example, AI could be much better at understanding the external environment in which we operate, competitive pressures, what competitors are doing, and how they are communicating about their product externally. AI could be really helpful in working with unstructured data within the company to help me develop hypotheses on, for example, why we are selling more into this segment and not that segment, or how our pricing is being perceived. Things of the nature that don't make it in neatly organized Excel tables or databases. And again, those things can serve to generate the hypothesis, which will then my team or analytics team would be able to prove or disprove using hard data. But it's the sort of eyes and ears on the ground that could really be helpful to me in doing my job. And then on the tactical side, there's a whole bunch of cost optimization within customer success organizations that we've all heard about in press and in podcasts. There's a whole bunch of work that can be done better or faster with AI in marketing, content personalization, marketing outreach, and things like that. But I'm really looking forward to the strategic part of my job being helped by AI.
Well, we're up to our finance strategic moment question, where we just ask you to look back in time. And anything come to mind when we ask for a finance strategic moment?
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's what I referred to a little bit prior in this conversation. When I just joined Pantheon, maybe 6 to 9 months into it, I was able to identify a discrepancy between how we think we provide value to our customers and how we price our product. And I was able to convince the executive team that there is a gap and that I could be trusted to propose how to different ways of solving for it and propose a new pricing strategy for us. And I think what I was able to do, which was only possible because I've spent so much time in the first 90 days talking to customers and talking to partners, I was able to articulate how different segments within our customer base value different things differently. And we were able to create an entirely different pricing structure than what I inherited from the company founding. We were able to work through different implications for our open source. Pantheon was also born out of an open source community. We were able to work through issues of perception of our pricing within the open source community versus perception of our pricing within the larger enterprise community. We were able to demonstrate how we could operationalize those pricing changes. But and I was able to understand and have a strong hypothesis and convince the executive team and frankly the board of the impact of the pricing change. A lot of people were concerned about potential churn, potential negative consequences. I was able to have a solid educated guess on the financial impact of this. And that project took probably 9 to 15 months, 3 to 5 quarters. And it was rolled out in stages, which is something that I also ensured that we could do. And that journey that later enabled us to raise Series D and gave me the opportunity of the right to be promoted, earned me the right to be promoted, was a real leadership moment for me.
$37,025.1. These are the three numbers to remember to get the visibility and control you need to make the right business decisions instantly. 37,000. That's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down expenses. 1. Because your business is one of a kind, you should get a customized solution for all of your KPIs in one efficient system and with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need, all in one place. Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free, at netsuite.com/KPI. That's netsuite.com/KPI.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We have little music that comes in right after your finance strategic moment. And then we come back and we say, well, we're entering the mentoring round where we'll ask you several quick questions intended to inform and inspire future finance leaders. We'd like you to think back to that first time you stepped into a CFO role. So it would have been at the Pantheon Partners or platform, excuse me. And it would have been that first 30 or 60 days, something that perhaps surprised you about the role, something you hadn't thought a lot about before you accepted that position. Anything come to mind?
What surprised me was how surprised other people were that I wanted to talk to customers and partners.
Huh.
I don't think a lot of other executives expect that of the CFO. My CEO was exceptionally supportive and encouraged me and made introductions and mentored me on the journey. But what surprised me was that other people were surprised, but that gave me so much credibility later on. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, you explained that you noticed sort of the subtleties between the customers, and when you were drawing up that pricing strategy, you kept those in mind. Is that right? I mean, had you
Well,
not gone out
that's
and connected with these customers, maybe it wouldn't have been apparent just looking at the numbers, or
well, even before that, talking to customers allowed me to surmise that there is something off between how we communicate value and how we charge for it.
huh?
The way people described how they thought about our pricing. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how I think about pricing. It's not about how CRO or CMO thinks about the pricing. It's about how the customers think about the pricing. And what I learned in those conversations was that customers thought about the pricing differently than the company. And this is what set me on this path to investigate further. Because like as everything in life, it's about what questions you ask. That that is way more important and way higher value to the organization.
And too often the CFO is playing a game of telephone where he's hearing what the customers are saying via two or three other people in a chain,
Or
perhaps.
right,
Yeah,
or Salesforce. And again,
yeah.
coming back to our earlier conversation, I am really looking forward to the time when AI will be able to browse through that unstructured data, through those records of conversations and presentations and emails and Salesforce records to inform the CFO of possible hypotheses.
Let me ask something just of a more practical nature for a CFO who would like to get in front of more customers. There is the outreach that has to happen and the sort of the internal politics that are sometimes involved with customer relationships. I mean, have you learned anything as to how to get in front of customers? Just invite them to lunch? I mean, what is the I don't want to be too naive here, but it can be tricky.
It can be, but if you manage to build trust with the CEO and other members of the executive team, it's surmountable. You don't want to do it on your own. You want to join others. You want to first maybe join a monthly update call or something fairly low pressure. And as the company earns the trust and you ask a few good questions, and companies see that you could add value, or at the very least, not ruin any relationships, they'll take you along. And the thing is, customers appreciate having a C-level executive sponsor or a C-level observer on their calls. They feel good about that. So you always have that card that, hey, look, the customer would like to be able to be in front of the CFO, because obviously in this interaction, you always tell the customer that they're welcome to email you directly, the CFO, and if they have questions about anything, or perhaps about financial component, that they have this direct line. So you can illustrate how your presence can actually help the sales team or whichever other team or engineering team build better relationship. You want to add value. You don't want to be, being a fly on the wall is okay, but even better is to add value for everybody involved.
And you wouldn't object to the team every so often asking you, being proactive in their own way, saying, Mark, can you sit in on this?
That's, to me, that's the highest compliment.
Okay, well said. We're going to, we always like to ask our guests to reflect a little on the personal side, Mark. We're wondering if there's something most of your colleagues might not even know about you, something interest you pursue, something of you've done in your past, a past chapter. You ran the 2-minute mile.
I did not. No, I enjoy road biking a lot. I live in San Francisco Bay Area, in the city proper itself, and as much time as I can possibly get, I really like to think about pricing on my bike crossing the Golden Gate Bridge. So that's one thing I cherish.
And where can we ask you about your roots? Where are you originally hail from? You don't have a Bay Area accent, I don't think.
I was born in Russia and came to the States at a fairly young age. So I went to high school and college in San Francisco.
We wonder if there's a book you might recommend for us. It doesn't have to be a business book. It might just be something that interests you, something you escape with. Anything come to mind?
On the business side, Qualified Sales Leader is probably my favorite, and something every CFO should know. On the non-business side, I like spy novels and spy historical books about that craft.
Le Carre, or who are you reading?
Those two. Haven't read much since I joined the new job.
Yeah, time is precious, and that's why you might be pleased to learn we're up to our final question, Mark, which is to have you look forward and share your priorities as a CFO for the coming 12 months. What would those be?
Yeah, building the repeatable, predictable sales process, or helping the company build a repeatable, efficient sales process, and guiding the company to and through $100 million in annual recurring revenue.
Mark Khavkin, thank you for joining us on CFO Thought Leader.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Hello, listeners. As you may know, we recently passed the 1,000 episode milestone, and the fact is, we've published well over 1,000 episodes over the years, but we only prescribe a number to episodes featuring CFOs, because we know this is truly what has distinguished us over time. We're a platform dedicated to the people who actually occupy the CFO office. And to you, our listeners, who are very often seeking to better understand the roots of finance leadership. Well, it's with this in mind that we're pleased to announce the release of our new book titled The CFO 500, where we have profiled 500 of the more than 1,000 CFOs that have participated with us over the years. And you remember Siskel and Ebert, the movie guide. Leonard Moulton had his movie guide as well. Well, that's sort of the concept of what's inspired this volume, the CFO 500. Think of it as a reference volume where you can quickly thumb through the 500 one-page CFO profiles and cherry pick out the interviews that matter to you. How so? Well, each CFO page profile includes an individual QR code that allows you to instantly access the audio interview with the CFO that most intrigues you. Or maybe it's a particular industry. Just like that movie guide you used to reach to on a day when nothing much was going on, here's a way to quickly reference the interviews that matter most to you. The CFO 500 is now available for $29.95 and can only be purchased via CFOThoughtLeader.com. So visit us at CFOThoughtLeader.com. Thank you.